with me today is Ines White. Welcome, Ines.
Thank you.
I heard your story. Well, I heard I'm guessing a tiny little bit of your story from Hector Bautista, who is here in the Chancery. He said, you really need to have her on the show. And I said, okay, but I don't really know anything. He's like, just trust me. It's a really good story. I'm like, okay. She's told me a little bit about her story as we've sat here before we started. And I think we're in for a ride. Just everybody buckle up. Ines has a very interesting, probably sad sometimes, but redemption story at the end and just a coming back to faith. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Will you start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing now? Where'd you come from?
Absolutely. So I was born in Brussels, Belgium. Until about 7 years old, we lived there and we did some traveling. But so both of my parents are from Belgium. A lot of people think I'm a military brat, but no. I have military brats, but they're my brats.
Right.
So my mother immigrated to South Dakota in 1972.
Okay.
And it was my older brother, who's 2 years older than me, Luke, and my younger sister, Eve, who's 5 years younger than me. And so then I graduated. We'll talk about what happened after that.
Right.
So then I came back in high school, 1980, and graduated from Eagle Butte High School.
Okay.
Attended USD, majored. I got a degree in English literature and French. French is my first language, so that was kind of easy. I got an ROTC scholarship. Yeah, it was very easy. ROTC scholarship while I was there. I also met my husband. He's from Vermillion, Chris White. And so we got married at St. Agnes between my junior and senior year.
Sure.
And then I whisked him off of the next 27 plus years around the world. We have 3 beautiful children. Alexandria, who's 34, Sam, who's 32, and Catherine, who's 26.
Wow.
And so,
You must have been a baby when you had them, but you kind of were.
Yeah, we got married at 21.
Yeah.
So
nowadays, that's almost a baby.
Yeah, it's almost. And then we have 4 grandchildren.
Sure.
Alex has Emma, who's 9. Wyatt is 5. Claire is 3. And Olivia's about to be 2.
Wow.
Yes.
So you've got a nice family. And
Yes.
What do you do
very
then
blessed. So after the military, I work now for a company called the Institute for Defense Analysis out of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
It's a fully funded research and development company that only works for the government.
Okay.
They are not a private contract.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm in between government employee and a contractor, kind of in between the two. And so I travel the world. I'm about to go to the Philippines.
Oh, nice.
I also work in Lebanon.
My goodness.
And I just did 6 years in Mali, Africa. The great thing is I get to live in Vermillion, South Dakota, but I get to go to Africa and Lebanon and the Philippines. So that's what I do right now. I'm a logistics subject matter expert.
Wow, that sounds very interesting and fun to travel
so much. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love traveling.
So I know, as interesting as that all is, there's a story behind here. There's some years missing there that you mentioned when you moved to South Dakota and when you graduated high school. So can you tell us what happened after you moved to South Dakota?
So an acquaintance of my mother followed us a few months after we had arrived in Eagle Butte, and he demanded that she return to Europe.
Oh.
And obviously she was not going to do that. So in retaliation, he went and got our sister, who was at a daycare at the time, and my brother and I were waiting to take the bus to go home, and he pulled up in a car, and he said, "Hey, your mom says I can take you guys. I'm going back to Europe, and she said I can take you guys to dinner." And we hesitated for a moment because we're like, But he had our sister, so we're like, "Oh, okay. Well, he has Eve, so okay." So we jumped in the car. Well, next thing we know, we're on an airplane flying back to Europe.
Oh, gosh.
And he's saying, "No, it's okay. You know, she said this was okay. It's not a problem. She's really not liking being in the United States, and so she's going to come in a few days." Well, a few days turns into weeks, and then weeks into months, and then he started saying she doesn't want you anymore. She's not coming. And being 9, 7, and 5, 2, actually Eve was 2. We're like, well, she's not here, so he must be telling the truth, right?
Right.
He's an adult.
Right.
We're kids. He must be telling the truth.
Right.
So so it turned into about nearly 8 years. And originally we were living in Europe, but he was hiding us from the authorities. We lived in England, which is where I actually learned to speak English. And our last place that we were in Africa.
Uh-huh.
We were in Africa.
Yeah.
The last place where we finally had a moment where, and still we didn't know we were kidnapped. The whole time, we didn't know the word kidnap. We didn't know we'd been kidnapped.
Yeah.
We thought we had been abandoned by our mom.
So can I ask a question here?
Mm-hmm.
What was your mom thinking and doing? I'm sure she's looking for you.
She's looking.
So
looking.
Did
Yes.
she know that he had you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because when she went to go pick up Eve at the daycare, they told her, well, this man came. He said he was her father. And
Oh, gosh.
And, back then you don't require
Right.
identification or anything like that. So
These are some of the reasons they do that now.
1972. Yes,
Yes.
right. He's a reason.
Right.
And so, so she was looking, hoping that we were still alive. And one of the reasons that we were able to find her, actually, when we decided to look for her, was that she had not moved and she had not changed her phone number. And so that was how we were able to come back, is because she had not moved and not changed her phone number. And
Right.
so
okay, how did you get out of this? Because you're children. I mean, and how long were you with him?
Yeah. So, like I said, about at the 8-year mark, I'm 14 at this point. He had kicked out. We were living in what's now called Burkina Faso.
Okay.
Ouagadougou is the capital of Burkina Faso. At the time we lived there was Upper Volta. Geography lesson. But so he had kicked my brother out. So it was just my sister and I. And one day, so he wasn't a very nice person, obviously. The way he controlled us was through food. He would control what we would eat, which was very little.
I was going to say, so like keeping food back from you.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah. So he starved us quite often. And then if we didn't comply, we would get beatings. So the good thing is we protected our sister the most. So my brother got a lot of beatings because of that. I would get beatings if he didn't get beat. But our sister, we kind of kept her from getting all those beatings.
Sure.
So one day he said, hey, this guy's going to come pick you up and take you to eat.
You're like, okay,
I'm like,
hungry.
hey, I'm hungry. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So we go off to a restaurant, and I'm famished, and I eat. And on the way home, he tried to touch me. And I said, no, that's not happening. I'm
Right.
14.
Right.
No. I told him at one point, I'll jump out of this car if you touch me again.
Right.
And so he said, no, don't worry. So we got back to the house. Praise God. Nothing happened further. And then we get to the house, and he hands me a big wad of money. And I remember, because it was wrapped up tight with a rubber band around it. He goes, here. And I'm like, he goes, give that to your dad. At that point, we were calling him Dad. And I said, what? So I took it. I went in. I said, hey, I don't ever want to do that again. I'd rather not eat than have that happen again.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, it's not a big deal. Did you have a good time? I ate, but that was about it.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't ever want to see him again. So then a few days later, could have been a week later, he said, hey, remember that guy that you went to dinner with? I'm like, mm-hmm. He goes, well, he wants to take care of you. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, he wants to give you a house, and you'll have servants, and you'll have food. You don't have to worry about ever needing food. And me being naive and ignorant, I said,
14.
he wants to marry me? I'm 14.
Right.
He said, oh, no, he can't marry you. You're not the right faith. And then the light bulb went off, and I went, oh. And I didn't panic, but my brother was going to school at the same place I was going to school. So the next day I told my brother, I'm like, oh my God, I think he's trying to sell me to this person. And he said, that's not happening.
Right.
We've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
We've got to get you out of here, and we've got to get our sister out of here.
And you're in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
3 children in Africa.
Yes, 3 kids. So my brother was working at the American Embassy, and we knew the last time we saw our mom, she was in America. So he went to the American Embassy and said to a man he trusted, hey, we're in a situation, and we need to find our mom. Mm-hmm. So I got the phone number and the address of my mom, because the person who kidnapped us had kept her phone number and address in the book. And so I gave it to him, and he gave it to this man, and this man called. He couldn't call straight to South Dakota, so he called, I believe it was Chicago, the consulate in Chicago.
Oh, sure.
Like a relay, kind of a relay, because back then they didn't have, very good computers. And then the people in Chicago called my mom, and she fainted.
Oh, I'm sure.
On the phone, she fainted. And luckily, my stepfather, because she had married during the time we were gone, picked up the phone and said, you need to tell them that our children have been kidnapped. Those are kidnapped children. You need to check Interpol, check the records. These are 3 kids. And where are the rest of the kids? Because at the time, it was only my brother that was talking to the American Embassy. And the guy on the phone goes, I don't know about anybody else. I just know this boy, 16-year-old boy, wants to find you. So they said, tell him we're coming. Wow. So it takes time, right, to go back and call, and the time changed. Then when my brother found out we'd been kidnapped, that's how we found out that we had been kidnapped.
Wow.
So, and we had told them the situation we were in. So my brother comes to school and he goes, Inez, we've been kidnapped. And we have to find a place to hide because they're coming to get us. But if he finds out that and that I know, he will do something. He will take you. He won't take my brother because my brother had been rebelling against him for the beatings. Mm-hmm. And so we found a couple that we trusted, or we put our trust in them, that they wouldn't go tell him. And we said, listen, we've been kidnapped. We didn't know we were kidnapped. Can you hide us? And so they said, yes, absolutely. But I had to go back to the house, spend the night there, because my sister was there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, just walk away, obviously.
Right.
So we spent the night. I repacked our book bag with clothes, threw our books in the closet, and then left. We left. I didn't tell my sister what we were doing because I knew she would cry or get upset because she was little. And then they picked us up at the school, and they hid us. And then a few days later, a family member showed up. And it's another long story how we got away, because we couldn't get away right away because he took her to court to try to get us back. And it took another...
That seems insane.
Yes. Yeah. He wanted... At first, he wanted me back and my sister back. And then he told the judge, fine, I'll give you the 2 older kids, but I want to keep the younger girl. And my great aunt, who was the one that was there in Africa, said, no, that's not happening. No. So eventually we had to sneak out of the country.
Wow.
And we had to go to... we went to Togo, which is south of Burkina Faso. And then we ended up in Ghana because Ghana was having a coup.
Oh, yeah.
And because there was a coup in Ghana, nobody cared who came in and out of the country. So we went over there and hid there for a few more weeks. And then we were on the first plane out of Ghana back to Belgium.
That's an incredible story.
That's how we got out.
Okay.
That's how we got out.
So because we have limited time, so you were Catholic growing up, right? As a kid?
Yes, I was baptized, First Communion.
Okay.
Yes.
So during this time, I know you're young, and he probably wasn't taking you to Mass, I'm sure.
No.
Was God a part of your life then?
No.
So...
Well, I shouldn't say no, because the first 2 years, from 7 to 9, he hid us by putting my sister and I in a family that he paid to watch us. Mm-hmm. Like, we became a part. They didn't have children, and they did take us to church. Okay. So we did go to church with them for 2 years. So 7 to 9, we went to church with them. But we were... And they loved us very, very much.
Right.
And they were devastated when he showed up one day and said, I'm taking them. And so those 2 years, yes, we did have some time.
So then did you have to rediscover your faith after you came back home? And what happened in that? Because I have to imagine there's some feelings happening here. I mean, there's a time in your life where things were not so great.
Oh, no,
so
they were not.
How was your faith for you then, Ines?
So during the time I was kidnapped, or when I got back?
When you got back.
Oh, when I got back, it was actually so we didn't. I highly recommend if anyone does this, they get counseling,
Yes, for
and therapy.
sure.
Right? No, we
Yes.
didn't. We didn't do that. That's something we should have done. I was very fortunate. In high school, we didn't have any school records, so I started high school in my sophomore year.
Oh yeah.
With no school records or anything. But I had two wonderful friends, Bobby Joe and Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby Joe's family took me under their wing. My family lived on the edge of the reservation. We lived
Okay.
on the reservation.
Yep.
And so Barbara, she goes by Barbara now, Barbara Schuler, her and her family took me in, and I would spend, if I needed to, because I was in track and other activities, I would stay with them, and they started taking me to church.
Sure.
Yes, they started taking me to church, and I realized I was back where I needed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized I had not lost my faith, and
Yeah.
and so I went to church with them, and
Yeah.
I went to religious education with
Yeah.
her, and my senior year I actually ended up living with them, so I would go to church regularly in Eagle Butte. So yeah.
So did you have any time in there, either while you were kidnapped or after, where you kind of felt like you had been abandoned by God during those times? Was it, or was it kind of just an easy kind of slide back in? And
yeah,
how did that happen? Because I feel like for some people that might be really tough to maybe feel like, how could you let this happen to me? You know, things like that. Was there ever?
No.
How were you able to slide back in and kind of pick up where you?
I
left
think
off?
because I eased back into it. I think the hardest part, and I have to actually credit my mom, because even though she stepped away from the Catholic faith, she never stood in my way. She never said, "No, you can't go back. You can't go to the Catholic Church. You can't do that."
Right.
So she allowed me to be in my faith and to ease back into my faith, but I never felt abandoned.
Good.
And it wasn't when I was older I realized that he was there all along with us, and that I'm so blessed because some people don't believe because they don't see miracles. They don't see the goodness of God. But I got to see that. I got to see the goodness. I got to see miracles happening. And I didn't even realize there were miracles until afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the fact that we were kidnapped all together, he didn't take just one of us, he took three of us. We were able to stay strong together. And afterwards I thought, oh my gosh, so many things happened. The couple who we trusted to take us in and hide us, they didn't have to do that.
Right.
The man at the embassy who called my mom, or who called Chicago, and then called my mom, the man in Chicago who called my mom, they could have said, this is a 16-year-old boy. What is he talking about?
Right.
He wants to find his mom. You know, they could have said, I don't have the time.
Right.
You know, you're not an adult. Or they could have gone to the man who kidnapped us and said, why are these kids coming here talking to us? None of that happened.
Right.
And so I've witnessed the goodness of God, and I've witnessed these miracles. I ended up in Vermillion, South Dakota, even though no one in my class of 57 graduates went to USD. I was the only one. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, and I met my husband, and my husband has the faith, and his family has the faith, and we got married at St. Agnes, and my name, Ines.
I just put that together.
Yes,
You
my
told me
name
that earlier.
is Ines, and it's Agnes. You know,
Yeah.
So I had all these signs, and I didn't even know until
Yeah.
I got older, and I started teaching religious education and looking at my faith, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
he was there all along.
He was.
Yeah.
So we have about a minute
know.
left, which
Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. How has this impacted the rest of your life? That experience, how has that impacted the rest of your life as you've gone along?
Well, it's this situation or event in my life. I feel it made me stronger. I am so close to my sister and my brother. So and I'm able to use that experience to teach. I started teaching in 1988 when I was in the military. And but it also taught me that, bad things do happen.
Right.
So I have a fear of failure. I have a weakness. I don't like to fail. So yeah, it's been a blessing that whole experience.
Yeah.
In hindsight now, it was actually a blessing that it happened.
Well, and even as you were saying, you could see all the miracles. Even one of those really was that the man who he was trying to sell you to, that he never actually was able to touch you or hurt you in that
again.
way. So, because
never.
that could have been a completely different thing, and you may have been gone forever.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So, thank goodness that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to run out of time fast, which is a
Sorry.
bummer. Is there any
Sorry.
place, like, maybe you need to write a book? Have you written a book?
Oh my gosh, that is probably the number one question I get. My daughter,
Because I know you've
if
told
she
this
hears
story.
this, she will say, "Mom, I see. There's
I told
somebody
you."
else." I told you. If I could slow down, I volunteer a lot. And my son has autism. My youngest daughter has a rare genetic disorder.
Yeah. You've got a lot going on.
So so there's a lot going on.
Maybe
but
someday.
I need to. I do need to.
You should. Maybe have a ghostwriter do it for you. I don't know. But I bet you're a writer anyway. So thank you so much for taking time to come in and tell us a bit about your story. I know that sometimes you talk at parishes, right? And so if you are in a parish and you hear that Ines White is coming to tell her story, go listen to it, because there's a whole lot more to it than we could fit into our 20-minute time. So if she does that near you or any place you're willing to drive, go listen. I think you'll be inspired by a woman who went through a lot. I've only known you for literally 25 minutes, but I can see that in all the things you've went through in your life, you've come out the other side with God, and in just a beautiful way with a beautiful family. So thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
for having me.
Yeah. All right. If you haven't found us on social media, you can always find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and of course, YouTube at SF Diocese, or at the diocesan website at sfcatholic.org anytime. That's it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.